Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we're back working on Brenda's Roadster chassis. Last week we got the engine back in, got the exhaust in, and got a few things all sorted out, the e-brake. And at the end of last week's video, I didn't mention it, but I was working on putting the clutch slave cylinder in and hooking that up. Now, the one thing when we designed the clutch slave cylinder and the bracket for this engine transmission, we did not have the pressure plate and everything in here to basically get a kind of feel for, how strong the mount was and everything else. Unfortunately, now that we have everything in and I've hooked it all up, it's actually not strong enough. So I'm going to have to redesign both the arm and the bracket. Now the bracket in here just simply isn't thick enough. So I'm going to look at a couple things. The first thing I'm going to do is make it out of 1/4 inch. I think that's 3/16 there, but we'll make it out of 1/4 inch and we'll put it across 3 bolts here. And then potentially, if I still don't think that's strong enough, we'll gusset it. So there's a little bit of flex in this. I think by upgrading to the 1/4 inch plate, and going across 3 bolts here, I think that flex will be gone. And then the other thing was I built this little shaft. Now this portion of the shaft goes inside the slave cylinder, but this here is mild steel threaded rod, and it basically is the weak link. So what I'm going to do also, the slave cylinder, I'm going to move it higher up so that I don't have to have this bend. I'm going to get a straight rod here, so there's no possibility of bending it. We'll also upgrade this rod to probably I'll go get a grade 8 bolt and use that. So anyways, I'm going to carry on working on this. I'll show you how we made out. And one way or the other, we're going to get this solved and get this fixed. Another thing I realized when I put this together is that over here, and this is one of the things, you build a chassis like this over here, you put everything where you want it to be, where you think it's going to be, but then when you come to the final assembly, there's always something that you have to tweak. So don't get frustrated if they come across something like that. You just have to fix it. But what I'm finding over here, the other thing, is that the e-brake cable is right on top of the universal joint here. I'd actually like to have that move it a little bit further forward so that if it goes up and down, it's going to hit a static piece. It's not going to hit something rotating. So I'm going to address that too. The other thing we have to do before we put the body back onto it, we've got the gas tank. We're going to get the gas tank buttoned down in place. We're going to get the sending unit and also the pickup tube in place. And then we're going to start running a fuel line. So one of the things I did for the gentleman that owns this, I ordered up a electric fuel pump, a low pressure fuel pump. When he built that motor, he built it so that we would not use a mechanical fuel pump. So I guess on a flathead, when you don't use the mechanical fuel pump, you have to block the passage off. So that's done. So he can't go back to using a mechanical fuel pump without changing that. He wants to use an electric fuel pump. So we've ordered one up. We're going to get that all plumbed up, hopefully by the end of this video, and kind of push everything along to get it prepped up to put the body back on it. I want as much done to the chassis that's up underneath before I put the body back on. So anyway, follow along. We're solving problems. Here's a new clutch slave cylinder setup. Went actually quite well. I didn't get any other problems with it. Whenever you're doing something like this, I mean, you can go with a plan and it doesn't work, or you go with the plan and it just kind of keeps going. But in this particular case, was quite successful in making the new bracket work. I'm going to try and we've got new cameras here, so this thing is a little slippery. Just trying to show that the new bracket there actually connects up to 3 bolts versus the one sitting here, like right there. That's what we were using before. It was made from 3/16 plate. I beefed this one up and I'm using 1/4 inch. There is no flex in that whatsoever. The other thing that we did was this one had the slave cylinder a little lower. So what I've done, I've raised the slave cylinder physically up this way another inch so it's more kind of on the same level as what the eye of the arm is over there on the clutch. I'd like to show you how it works, but I don't know if I can with the camera here. Ouch. So if we, yeah, I don't have enough leverage here by myself, but if I had two hands, I can actually push on the clutch and it engages, and we still have quite a bit of adjustment right there. So we can undo the lock nut and adjust it up so that it goes in a little tighter. Right now it's sitting probably where it should. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to now disassemble that and then paint the bracket and then put it back on again. But another problem solved on the way to getting Brenda's Roadster on the road. And just like that, poof, the chassis was stripped. Spent most of the day here taking the front and the rear end and everything off and cleaning a few things up. The plan right now for the Camera Lady's Roadster chassis is that we're stripping it. I'm going to put it up on its side for the next month or two. Once the weather warms up here, probably towards the end of March, the first part of April, what I'll do at that point, I'll start cleaning the chassis, and then I will drop down the curtains here and I'll paint it. It's a little easier for me to paint it with the air circulating here. When the weather gets warmer, it's just too cold. So we're going to set this, like I said, up on its side. All the parts for the front end are kind of blown apart here on the bench. We're going to box some of it up. We're going to clean a few things. We're going to do a little bit of painting. There's a couple parts I have to order too, some replacement parts, a couple bearings I'm not that happy with, so we'll make an order for some of those. I'm going to replace these Lucky 7 steering arms, not because they're bad, but they're a little bit long. What I realized, if I buy some of the other forged ones, either from Roadster Supply or Speedway or whatever, they're just a little bit shorter, which actually gives me a better turning radius. So I'm going to upgrade to a set of those. We're going to get some more newer tie rod ends. Those just happen to be used ones. I'll order some of those up. We're going to clean some of the parts up, like I said here, and we're going to get them painted up. One or two of these will get powder coated. And then over here, on this bench, I've sorted out all the stuff right now I want to get powder coated. So front axle, hairpins, rear bars, the bat wings, the brake brackets, the lower shock mounts. Sorry, not pronouncing things very well here, but we're going to get these all sent out and get powder coated this week. Another thing on the agenda, I just started doing it because some of the stuff we're doing, this housekeeping stuff, because should have mentioned it on Brenda's Roadster here, made a lot of progress. If I didn't mention it, we got the gas tank in, the sending unit and everything else. I'm going to put a ground on the sending unit. But what I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for a fitting to go on the gas tank and then a fuel pump. So what we want to do is we want to run the fuel pump and the fuel line right up to the carburetor before we put the body on. The clutch is completely put in right now. Very happy with that. I think previously I showed you that I'd made the bracket, so I painted the bracket up right there. It's all bolted down and torqued in place. I made the new rod, I adjusted the rod, and it actually works quite well. We're very happy with that, so problem solved on that one. But like I said, we're waiting for parts. I can't really do anything else, so we're going to carry on with some of the housekeeping stuff. So as I was about to say, and have to explain why, I started taking the Y-block oil pan off for the truck. As you notice here, it has a rear sump for the truck motor. Y-blocks, I know a lot of you guys watching this know this already, but they've got an external oil pump and there's a pickup tube that goes into the oil pan. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that off, we're going to clean it up, and I'm going to take it to a friend's place. He's got a engine degreaser. We'll get that cleaned up and then get it ready to go over here on our 272 right here, which currently has a front sump And also, the tube there, if you notice, has got a kink into it. I'm sure that it works okay, but that's not the reason. Like I said, we want to put the rear sump oil pan and pickup on this rebuilt 272. So, like I said, we're going to carry on with a few of the boring stuff on the odds and ends for moving the projects forward. And hopefully we're going to get some stuff in before the end of this video to do some more work here on Brenda's Roadster. Well, the oil pan came off quite easily. Every bolt came out with not a whole lot of resistance. Oil pan pried off okay. There was a lot of baked on dirt. And then in the bottom of this, I should have done this video beforehand, but basically the oil pickup there was covered in sludge right to the top of this rim. I just finished digging a lot of it out. So I think I'm going to have to take the tube out if it comes out and try and get the rest of this sludge out. There was probably 2 quarts of oil still into it. And what had happened, I tried to drain the oil out, but because there was so much sludge into it, when I undid the plug, well, nothing came out. This engine is out of a 64 F100. I don't think it was ever rebuilt. Was taken out of that truck probably 3 or 4 years ago. I've had it since. Was a running motor, even though it's worn, but wicked amount of sludge into it. And I guess maybe for these older motors, that's not such a big surprise. But anyways, we got to get this cleaned up. Going to take the rest of the sludge out of it and take it up to a friend's engine building shop. He's got a big engine degreaser. We'll put that in, we'll clean it up, and then try and get this painted to get ready to go onto the 272. So here it is the next day. I put some Varsol in the center of there and let it soak overnight. Scraped most of it out. Looks as though the oil pickup tube and everything is cleaned up pretty good. I think with a combination of all the dirt and sludge on everything, it didn't seem to be corrosive at all. All of the scraping that I've done to get all the crud and the baked on mud from down south. I think this truck came from Texas. So there's all kinds of like light brown mud caked everywhere. So we've scraped all that off, and this oil pan is extremely sound. Like there is no real rust like we see here on the East Coast or anything. No pinholes, no nothing. Whatever was on it was caked on really good and protected the metal since 1964. The nut on the oil pan, the oil pickup tube, spun off no problem at all without a whole lot of resistance. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take this up to our friend Danny Andrews up at DWA Automotive, and he's going to run it through the engine parts cleaning machine, and we'll get the rest of the stuff off of it, and hopefully we'll have this back here soon to stick on the 272. Well, we're slowly progressing and getting the chassis ready to put Brenda's Roadster's body back on it. Finished a few things off this morning. The fuel line, the owner and I decided to run with an AN6 braided steel line instead of the steel line with rubber hoses onto it and stuff. It's a little bit neater. So we're coming out of the fuel tank, going along the frame. We're going to use a low pressure electric fuel pump. We'll give this little one a try here. We've tried some of the bigger fuel pumps with the regulators before, but they're noisy as all get out. So we're going to try this little one here. Worst comes to worst, it's quite accessible from up underneath. We'll change it out to something else. But we continued on with the braided steel line up to the engine. I'm waiting for a couple fittings to go on the carburetor to finish it off, but that's something I can do actually after we put the body onto it. For the fuel pump, I went through some of my loose wires from previous kits, and I actually found a yellow wire marked fuel pump, which is not necessary, but just that way we keep track of things. And then in the back, we've got a wire on there, likewise marked fuel gauge from one of the kits that we had previously. I ran a separate ground wire from the gas tank to the frame, just in case. It's It's kind of might be redundant if I've got a good ground between the fuel tank and the frame, but we've got the extra ground line onto it because we don't want to be taking the tank out later on if we have to. Filled the transmission up with Dextron 2 equivalent transmission fluid, so we've got that ready to go. Right now the owner's on his way. He is going to actually change out the tires. Right now it doesn't have enough rake to it. I mean, the white wall tires and the artillery wheels are really cool, but for a 32 Roadster, he's thinking more of getting something a little bit bigger in the back, a little bit smaller in the front. So he's on his way with those. So we're not going to try and put the body on just yet. We'll get those tires onto it. As far as the oil pan for the Y block, that is out getting cleaned. I got that out yesterday. Then as well, all of the front end parts for the Camera Ladies Roadster, we took that over to the powder coater. That'll be back sometime next week. We'll show you that. Another thing for the Camera Ladies Roadster, we had bought some 16-inch rims for the back and picked some tires out for it. Those tires are a little bigger than what the rims are, so there's a fellow locally here that Jeremy Gass, he's going to split those and widen those rims up. That's in process, so when we get those back, we'll show you those. But right now, just waiting to get these other tires on and hoping, fingers crossed, we can get some more done on this. Well, as you can see, we got some new tires and rims. I think that these are old true spokes from the 80s and the 90s. They seem to be quite high quality spoked rims. I can't see a name onto them or anything, but maybe it's somewheres. But right now there's 15-inch on the front and 16s on the back. Now, unfortunately, these particular rims, although I think it's an upgrade from what we had before, I think it looks a lot cooler. They're 5 on 5.5 bolt patterns, so they would have fed on, I guess, maybe a Model A or something. But we had to put the 1-inch offsets off, so I think right now the tire is actually sitting a little further out from the car than what we want. Although it looks good from the side, we're going to talk it over with the owner and see what other options there are, or if he's happy with it. I've certainly seen other cars set up this way, and even though there's a little bit of a gap here, it's not extraordinary. So anyways, it's a lot nicer than the white walls were really cool with the other rims onto it and stuff, but I think this is kind of really retro 90s stuff or 80s stuff. Like I said, I think they're true spoke rims, which are kind of like a copy of a 35 Ford rim, but like a modern version. So anyway, nice tires and rims. And then as you can see, we spent the time today and I very gingerly put the body back on the frame. It's not bolted down yet. It is in position, probably within about a 3/16 of an inch. So I left my lifting jig in here for now. I kind of just wanted to show you, although we did a whole bunch of small necessary stuff this week, nothing was really all that exciting to do, but it's part of the stuff you have to do when you're building hot rods. So right now, that's it for this week. We've got the Roadster body back on Brenda's chassis, so we're making some progress here. So anyways, please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Send me your comments. Tell me what you think about the tire and rim combination and the size. I appreciate your comments, and come on back next week and see what we're up to.